Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Week in Challengers. And you know we had to cover the Paris Major Open because it was riddled with storylines. Because not only was the tournament electric, we also have a lot of things changing in the landscape when it comes to Challengers champs. We also got to talk about a particular player who's been getting some eyes for some CDL teams ahead of champs and EWC. We're going to cover all of that and more this week in Challengers. Now, obviously, the major was electric. Enigma was there. But Challengers was rocking in the back. Some people got to watch it. And it was absolutely ripping. And it was this was a fantastic event. I was like checking in over the weekend, right? I had like stuff to do, and every once in a while I'd like open up Twitter. I was seeing kind of updates through there, checking on my phone, things like that. Talk about upset city, new teams kind of maybe finding some form and looking good. Was absolutely crazy. Shout out the Pit. They gave us this great graphic. You can see the standings and pro points and what they took home for prize money. But I mean, just kind of being in the venue, I'll kick that over to you at first, Enigma. Like, do you feel like maybe some of the hype and the energy from the main event kind of bled on over into Challengers? Because it kind of felt like on both sides, it was like just a lot of energy.
I hope so. I think that what it should have served as is a motivator, right? I think that you look and we're having a generational event, a potentially bar-changing event for the future of Call of Duty esports. It felt like it was the most ridiculous event I've ever been to.
Yeah,
quite simply. 25,000 fans or whatever it was, losing their minds endlessly. This most ridiculously beautiful setup inside one of the biggest stadiums, or at least inside venues in Paris, in France. Sorry. So, yeah, I think that it should have been for all those players. And I know the production wasn't fantastic. And that, to be fair, was on the situation of the security for the venue. This was not a CDL thing, yada, yada. This was a long, winding story about the security, which were also just very difficult generally across the board. But it's a case of you should have been sat there playing in this area, which was just a small area inside the venue, kind of behind the main stage and stuff. And you should have been sat thinking, I want to get myself onto that stage.
Yep.
Like, there is pyro and fireworks and like screaming fans and like this lift that was bringing the gentlemates out of the floor. And it's like, if you're playing in Challengers, you got to be thinking, I have to see this right now as the moment that really helps turn my afterburners on and put me up on that stage with all the rest of those players. Because you will have been left with no doubt as to the hype in that venue when you're sat playing at those stations.
Well, hey, let's talk about, what happened in that bracket. Obviously, overall, OMiT EU, it's on what I'm calling the home turf, the home soil, in that it is their region. Not the same country, but doesn't matter. Coming fresh off of the Pro-Am, they looked good in Atlanta, but here they are now coming into this Open. Now, finally, I think, obviously going through the entirety of Elite Four, feeling very good, obviously, off of that. And now they get ready to come on in here into the Open. And brother, I'm just gonna say something. They didn't just win, dude. They dog walked the bracket. It was not even close for this OMiT roster, man. When you look at the bracket and who they went up against, their toughest opponent was that Stallions roster of Asim, KB, Rupert, and Skill that was thrown together last minute. That went to a game 5. Other than that, it was all 3-0s, 3-1s, including grand finals and a 4-1 against Torn, who they beat in order to get to grand finals, right? So it's just that OMiT EU team, and this is what I love, right? I love a team that's got some energy around them to kind of come out and stomp, right? And to see this roster be able to do that, back up a lot of the hype and the energy was really, really nice.
Yeah, it was. I mean, look, the way this roster comes together is insane. Like, Rafi obviously wanted a roster that could compete towards the top, put a lot of faith in a lot of unproven stories. Denzer's on about his 18th comeback tour in his career. He's got to be the oldest player in Challengers now, surely. But Aspect then as well. This is a player who's kind of flittered with kind of getting up into the league at points in his career. He's kind of sat on that outside edge looking in. This is now a chance for him to really make a claim. But of course, it's all about DK and Ethan. That's where a lot of the headlines are going to sit for DK, for both of these players. Young guns that kind of have burst onto the scene this year. For DK, he's kind of been around for a little bit. For Ethan, like, he didn't really do much in the way of COD until very recently. And it's kind of like, okay, what is the potential ceiling for this kid then? Because if he's put in a fraction of the reps that everybody else is at that stage, he's looking as good as this, there's no talking about what he could do should he manage to get himself up into a pro setup and potentially learn from all of those experienced players up there and where he could really go. What is his true ceiling?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what his ceiling really is for that exact reason of like it's been such a short runway, and then for him to be able to already come on in with this team and show these signs of life is really, really nice. I'm crossing my fingers that this is a team that can get to EWC, man, because I'm really expecting them, if they can get there, dude, they're going to be a problem against some of these teams at the Esports World Cup, right? That we've seen that some of these challenger teams be in the past, but not the only storyline we had coming out of this bracket, right? We got to talk about the team that came in second, man. Hey, hands up. This torn roster was not one that I had doing anything crazy in a bracket. Top 16, top 12, I would have been like, okay, great. Yeah, I think that's pretty realistic, pretty doable. You say top 6, top 8, I could say a little run. Dude, this team came in second, beating out some insanely talented teams. They put sword to some very talented teams. 3-0 against Rock, 3-1 against OMiT Brooklyn on that winner side until they lose against the OMiT EU over there. But then it's just kind of like this loser side where they have to kind of like fight their way through, right, in order to try and get back against OMiT EU. And it's just, dude, I mean, what? They go to game 5 against that war roster. It's a game 5 2v4 against the Bush in order to win that one. And then, to put them back in the grand finals. Dude, this team, Dak, Millie, TK, and Mintz, I think now has to have some respect put on their names.
Well, it is crazy kind of where they've come from, because this roster, since they've come together as these four specifically, the only result they had was a top 16 in Cup 13. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, at that point, a very short-lived team. They hadn't been together very long. In the Elite, it was top 10, but they had Hitman in there instead of Millie. So Millie, the sub coming in, has helped, obviously take them to that level. But this roster's flittered largely between like top 32s and top 16s most of the year, and now it's just suddenly starting to come alive. TK, of course, we knew that he was a talent. He was obviously getting accused of cheating at one point, and obviously that's not true. But it's also just the run. Like, you kind of briefly touched on it there, but it's like Rock, Brooklyn. Yes, you lose to OMiT EU. Okay, but then you beat Notorious, War, Bush. Like, yeah, that is a gauntlet. Like, online, you've just gone up against pretty much every great team in the tournament. Yes, you lose twice to OMiT EU. Fine, they're the champions in the end. But for everybody else, you push them aside. And now it's like, you talk about moments like that 2v4, beating out these big sides. It's like, okay, yes, this side now have to be considered a real threat for whatever remains this season. Challenger champs, EWC. And we were not saying that a week ago.
No, we definitely weren't. And just kind of round out, I think, a conversation on a couple of other teams as well. I mean, obviously the Bush, it was looking like a great bracket for them, dude. I mean, they showed some real signs of life, but I don't know what it was. I mean, they go into that winner side, they lose 3-2, of course, against OMiT. It's a game 5 there. So you're kind of thinking like, okay, Bush will probably drop down into losers. They're going up against Torn. Should be a good series, get them back into grand finals, try and go for that back-to-back, try and be able to get them there. And also just for the Bush too, like being able to secure challengers champs, even though they're good on pro points right now, is like, also just like another just good ad there. But the fact that, and this is like credit to Torn, but also sounding like some questions around the Bush are like, what happened in that losers final? Like, is this just as classic, you run out of gas? I know I saw a lot of the players tweeting, hey, this wasn't our event. Like, we did not play it the way that we should. This was not the standard that we usually are setting for ourselves. I like to see that accountability come out from them, but it was like, it kind of felt like it was like that perfect storm of like, Torn is on fire, is peaking at the right time, and now all of a sudden Bush is just kind of falling flat, and it does still go to a game 5, but I'm going to be honest with you, man, you can't be getting 2v4 going into trying to get into a grand finals. It can't happen, and I hope that stings enough for the Bush that'll be in the back of their brain when it comes to playing in these higher elevated matches, like, things like Challengers Champs.
No, I agree. I mean, 2v4 is not going to happen often. I don't think we can sit there and like lean on that.
Yeah, exactly.
As like a thing that is like, but yeah, that one, what you've got to do is not let that sting, right? And to be fair, their reaction at the time was kind of like, fuck, all right, well, that happened. So hopefully there's enough experienced heads in that roster to kind of just get the, like, every now and again, that's going to happen to you. This is Call of Duty, and you can't sit there and really lean on it too much. You just got to go like, all right, let's not let that one happen again. This is a team that, of course, we know is going to be right up there towards the very top. They've got to close out in champs, make sure they get to EWC. That it should be there. Quality of the roster, the story of the roster, and everything else. But Yeah, man. Like it's just that's all they can really do. It's just got to be the one that got away, rather than
Yeah.
really digging on it too deep. I think it was one of those moments where that was when you understood that this run from Torn wasn't going to be stopped by anything except the absolutely powerhouse roster that was OMiT EU. And sometimes you have to accept your part in that.
Yeah, no, it was really, it was fun to see Torn go on that run. Hate to see the Bush go out in that fashion, but that's just how Call of Duty works sometimes, right? But either way, this was a really fun tournament to be able to keep on up and watch over the course of the weekend, man. I mean, I love anytime the Challengers teams get to go against each other on LAN, and I think that this definitely delivered a lot of those same storylines, was really looking good. And it has me super excited, man, for Challengers Champs and what's coming down the line. Now, while as fun as the Major 4, the LAN Open, was in Paris, it did have some implications when it comes to qualifying for Challengers Champs. I know this is like our 5th episode, I think, talking about pro points and Challengers Champs.
Important this time of the year, man.
It's important, right? And I know we've seen all the comments as well, in some of the past episodes being like, hey, this is great. This is the exact type of information I'm looking for. So that's why we do this, because we want to help you guys stay up to date. So if you guys didn't remember, if you want to go back and watch our segment from last week where we kind of talked about what it means to get to Challengers Champs, how all the slots work, things like that, go check that out. But the top 2 from this Open automatically qualify to Challengers Champs, right? So it's going to be OMiT EU and Torn for basically getting to the grand finals. Cool. After that, we now go into the top 4, at least for NA and EMEA, the top 4 in pro points. So starting in NA, that means we're going to have Bush, P7 Notorious, Huntsman, and Brooklyn. And then for EMEA, we are going to have, this is where it gets interesting in EMEA, because OMiT Noir was 2nd in pro points in EMEA, it's going to be Rock, skips over OMiT Noir, and now it's going to be P7, Exceptional, and Team Alpha are actually going to be your top 4 there. Now, here's a big asterisk, folks, to all of this. If there are any roster changes, which I think they have until literally tomorrow from us recording this, I believe it's July 1st, they have until July 1st to make roster changes. And maybe some of those roster changes could change some of the pro point distribution. The only problem is, I don't know if anybody else can really do that in any of the regions for it to matter. Because in both regions, it's like, look at Team Kez is like 50,000 behind Team Alpha or so that's there. And then in North America, it's, FaZe Falcons are like 30,000 behind OMiT Brooklyn. I don't know if there are any roster changes that can get you there. You might see it for seeding purposes, but probably not to like try and get back on into it. The reason I wanted to bring this up, Enigma, though, was for one, kind of big thing that was there. We'll go ahead. We'll take a quick look at it. And that is because the LCQ starts this weekend, at least for North America. So that means that all of those teams, you have those top 4, are not going to be playing in that LCQ, but there's still so many good teams that are now going to having to be played through that LCQ, right? And I think this is going to be really fun to watch, because I think maybe some of these rosters thought like, oh, the LCQ will be easy because all the top dogs are gone. But then you look at some of the remaining teams and you're like, wait, this is going to be an absolute gauntlet for us to try and get through.
Yeah, which is, it's going to be, it's actually going to be fucking gross. It's going to be a wonderful tournament to tune into. It's going to be a wonderful tournament to get to watch. Yeah. So, a lot of these, you're assuming that all the top teams are going to sign up.
Let's assume for right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's assume that there isn't going to be much in the way of changes that make a difference here. So, right now, it would go in as Falcons, Cabal, Omni Invictus, and Stallions as seeds 1 through 4.
Yep.
On the top there. I mean, I'm just kind of taking a look at it. It's like it's just going to be a case of like, okay, it's basically a Champions League style tournament. We get a lot of the best type of teams, but without, like, I guess we cut the top 4 off just because they're already through. It's, I don't know, man. Like, the LCQ is going to be really fun. I'm just kind of taking a look there. It says July 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. I'm guessing that's because you guys do your whole independence bullshit on July 4th, right? By the way, for me, technically, it's July 1st. Happy birthday, brother. But, yeah, it's, I don't know, man. Like, it's just going to be an insane tournament. I feel for FaZe Falcons because they were probably obviously expecting Bush to not lose a 2v4 in round 11 and therefore would have gotten through 2 finals and that would have qualified them straight through.
Yeah.
But as the cookie crumbles, as it goes, I am seeing, by the way, so I'm looking at finals. I'm looking at finals and for Challenger Champs. Currently on the website, it's listed as NA points, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. But then purely the LCQ winner. But I thought that I heard a rumor that was going to change, but apparently not. So it's purely just the LCQ winner then. So place your bets, I guess. I don't really know who I lean towards. I think that Flames, Vic, Dimensions, and Icons, the roster's been pretty gross recently, right? Cabal. And then Stallions were the biggest threat to, Cabal / War, whatever the fuck's going on there. Yeah, because obviously the whether or not, I guess Cabal probably not going to go back to the team. The roster's probably not going to go back to Cabal because what happened.
Who knows? Like,
whatever. I don't know. But then you've also got like Yuli, Mac, Arstees, Mirage. I don't fancy the FaZe Falcons at the minute. I don't know. There's something about them that I just don't really fancy. I tell you what, who will be very glad that they're getting through those top 4 seed? Huntsman, because they've just all of a sudden not looked great recently. Ever since the Awake pickup, it's just not worked. Well,
I also did see a tweet today. It didn't say what team he was going to, but I saw QK is also back in the mix as well. Yes, so for FaZe Falcons, maybe that's what they need, right? Maybe they bring QK in on that team if they're going to try and maybe elevate the roster a little bit ahead
players
of the LCQ.
That kind of sit in like free agency as well include like Rispy, Manny, Okus, Swooty, Symbols, Hitman, and Cootie. So all of those players could also enter the mix somehow.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see. I mean, it's like on the Stallions roster, for example, like you have Skill, who only has 19,000 pro points, but like, do you bring in a Smooty, right? Do you bring in a Manny or a Rispy on that roster just to elevate? Because like we said, it may not elevate you enough to just get like auto-qualled off points, but it could give you a way better seed and a way better side of the bracket when it comes times towards that Challengers Champs, right? So, or at least for the LCQ, rather. So very, very curious. A lot of big teams fighting in that LCQ that is going to be really fun. It feels like a separation to me. Like you're going to have 5 or 6, like, sort of teams that'll battle it out in North America. And then you're going to have basically like 4 teams that are like average. So like first round kind of feels like maybe Farm Fest a little bit. And that maybe from the second round onward, that's where we get some really good matchups that will boil on down. Obviously would love to be able to tune into the LCQ, but we're got our little holiday and I'm visiting family and stuff like that. So I'll be glued to my phone trying to watch all of it that's there, but really fun just to kind of see how this all boils on down for what it means for a Challengers Champs, man. Now, we alluded to it in the intro that there has been one player that has been getting the eyes of some CDL teams ahead of both CDL champs and, of course, the Esports World Cup. And that is none other than a young Ethan from that OMiT roster. You see Rafi tweeting here, no less than half the league has reached out about Ethan already, yet DK/Killy are sitting right here as well. That's how I know y'all aren't watching, which A, is hilarious because Rafi is spot on. It's like, hey, Ethan's one cog in the machine of that OMiT EU roster, right? It's not like he's the guy that's willing them magically through series, right? And his God, he is part of a broader system that has helped them, but it's just so funny to hear, like, just even some of the comments here, dude, have me laughing. Of like, you got Copy from P7 saying, pick the entire team up. Some of the shit these orgs have put together this year, just get something that's proved to work. Exactly the same as your EWC roster last year. Why split a winning formula? And Rafi responds with a very hilarious thing, but you can't drop 4 of your friends and spend more than $2 to try and compete. That's the problem. And that kind of hits it right on the head. And I love Hixie as well saying here, he's like, an 18-year-old top 2 at back-to-back events, barring in mind, he's played 3 events, which is like very, very true. Like if you're looking at the Challengers like landscape, man, of somebody to pick up, Ethan's a great player. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, he's also only played 3 events, but I guess he has gone top 2 back-to-back events.
Yeah, I mean, we live in a time now where people react to things incredibly quickly because what you don't want to do is miss out on potential, right? Yeah. Like I don't know. Let's talk about teams that might be interested and kind of go from there about why. Like top 4 teams, right? Like you're probably not changing. So Optic, Thieves, FaZe, Paris, right? You're probably not changing. Teams that aren't making champs, currently aren't making champs. Royal Ravens, Breach, Surge, New York. I would be surprised. I guess Ethan would get the opportunity to play WC if he did go, but yeah. I'd imagine he would have people in his ear being like, that's not worth the offer. Also, but considering that you're hearing that half the league have reached out, right? So it's got to be like, there's got to be more than those 4 teams. So it's like, I look at teams that have suddenly had a massive downward trend and teams like, I don't know, a Koi or, a Falcons, those kind of teams where it's like, look, at the minute, man, it's gone to complete shit. We may as well change something. It's like what you have the opportunity to do. Not that Falcons need money at all, but let's go with Koi, for example, who don't mind picking up players and selling them on. You've got the opportunity to pick up a young man in Ethan who he looks like he has a ridiculous ceiling. He's only played 3 events, yes, but he's ran 2 of them. So it's like, okay, so this kid is like, you could pick him up and suddenly get a huge payout from him later down the line. This is why in traditional sports, we end up with like these young kids suddenly thrust into great systems that turn out not to actually be that great, but you were hoping to gamble that they would give you a decent payout in the end. So I think that that's maybe what Ethan is probably going to be the kind of spot he's put into for some of these teams.
Yeah.
And I mean, while I have no doubts at all, he would improve a lot of those teams towards the bottom end. Again, considering the squads, again, Falcons, they look dreadful right now. It won't be Heretics, of course. They're Spanish speaking. So you're talking Koyo G2. I feel like G2 are a weird team where they're kind of like always on the cusp of actually being decent. They've just made changes. So again, I lean to, it depends on obviously who asked, but could it be?
It also to me, it's like you're basically, if you are weighing it up, right? You on one hand, you have guaranteed money, go play with a CDL team, kind of take the risk because like you said, like I'm going to just use Boston as an example because obviously they're my team, but you get an Ethan on a Boston roster who has traditionally sucked and not looked great. And all of a sudden they start to look kind of better. And you're going to be looking at this young gun going, wait, okay, he actually elevated this team that traditionally hasn't been good. Might be a good way to get eyes on you to get picked up into the CDL for next year, like you're saying. And then, you have those negotiations. Or if you're Ethan, you might also just kind of look and be like, all right, if to get to EWC, my team needs to be top 3 at Challengers Champs. Do we think we can do that? I think OMiT thinks that they can get top 3 at Challengers Champs, man, to get to the Esports World Cup.
I wonder if what you could do if you're in Ethan's shoes is go, look, you guys aren't at Champs, so I'm going to play with my team at Champs regardless. And then I'll join you for EWC. And like, obviously, if it's not, like, let's say it's not Koi or whatever. Because, like, again, Falcons probably aren't going to take that gamble because they don't need money. Miami's not going to happen. So if it's one of the bottom 4 teams, like, let's say Ravens, I don't know, they've shown a couple of times they're happy to dip into challengers. Let's say they're doing it. It's like, if I'm Ethan, I just go, all right, well, I'll play with OMiT for Champs. And
like,
then I'll play with you guys
why wouldn't you then, like, you're still going to get the same opportunity then? Like, if you know you're going to qualify through Champs with the roster that you play with all the time, wouldn't that want to be the roster you're going to play with at EWC? You don't.
Well, it depends. I guess it depends on if you do get that top 3, right? Like, as good as OMiT Noir look right now, there's no guarantees.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. Where that's like your insurance policy route. Essentially, we're like, it would be, but like, imagine it'd be crazy though. You do make top 3, and now Ethan's gone, and now OMiT have to backfill.
No, because I guess what you could do is kind of put in like a performance contingency, right? Like,
nobody's going. Why would they sign that though? Why no a CDL team is going to be like, yeah, if you make Champs, we won't sign you. They're gonna want the guarantee that you're going to play for them.
Ethan's not going to be lacking in options next year, though. Like, so Ethan could, even the power's in his core, the ball's in his core. He could just turn around and be like, look, I want to play with a team that I think is going to get me to EWC. I want to play with my boys. He could do, don't get me wrong, like, he could just turn around and go, all right, Ravens, you offer me X amount of grand a month, I'll go and do that. Like, I totally understand that too. But if he turned around and said, like, look, I'm going to play with OMiT. If we qualify for EWC, I'm going to play with them. Obviously, if I don't qualify for EWC, I'll come, I'm more than happy to come play with you guys. All these teams, like your Ravens, your Breaches, Surges, and New York, your season's done. There's nothing more you can really do right now. You can't prove to him that he just should be there for any other reason.
I also wonder too, though, like we know with EWCs, specifically from the Warzone side, when's roster lock? That's my question too. Could you do something like that? Because you're not going to know if you qualify to EWC until after Champs, which Champs is literally 2-3 weeks ahead of EWC. So it's really not a lot of time between qualifying from Challengers Champs to EWC, right? So you might not even have that opportunity, and who knows when roster lock even is. Do you even have that opportunity to make that happen, right?
I'm checking something here. I'm pretty sure as well that last year we ended up with 5 Challenger teams because it was someone like the Ravens, maybe it was Ravens. It was someone who just didn't fill out the forms quickly. I'm pretty sure it was Ravens.
It was Ravens, yeah. I remember
they didn't fill out the forms correctly to like get the team. So like you're right. Yeah, probably worth like everybody checking not only their forms but roster lock and shit as well. You need to make sure because didn't they sign all the contracts so they ran out straight after Champs? They didn't have a team for EWC basically.
Yep. That's basically what it was. Yeah, it was their you're right. Yeah, it was their contracts ended right after Champs. the players weren't signed to play. And basically, I think it was the org was like, no, we're not paying them salaries to go, like, we're not going to pay them to go play EWC, like, essentially is what it was, because they were all free agents. And so they would have to like re-sign them and like all of this stuff. So crazy stuff. I think listen, man, I love getting to talk ball with you. I think, you know, this thing around Ethan, it could be said for so many different players and challengers right now, right? So many superstar players are really putting on a show. And you kind of have to kind of weigh that. Ethan's, I don't think, going to be the only player in this type of situation where you're going to have people in the league looking to want to come to you to try and just pick you up. And these players are going to have to weigh back and forth. Do I think I can qualify through Challengers Champs with the team I am playing with? Or do I kind of maybe take the guarantee money, try and elevate a CDL team and get more eyes on me? It's going to be really fun to try and track that and keep on top of it. And I think it's just what we're kind of already starting to see is maybe some brewing already ahead of next year in the CDL, where maybe some of these challengers teams and players are going to have a much more of a fair shake. Challengers continues to boil week over week, man. I know we have a little bit of a lull before we get ready to head into the obviously Challengers Chance, but we got some LCQs for coming in from a couple of the regions. I think we'll probably, once we have teams set, maybe we'll do a little bit of a recap on some of the other regions that we haven't been able to really talk about this year, like LATAM and APAC, and maybe do a deep dive onto some of those teams of, you know, why we should pay attention to them. But it's going to be fun. So we're going to be keeping online for the next couple of weeks. But what has you most excited for the next couple of weeks between here and Challengers Chance that we have in a couple moments?
I think it's watching these LCQs. Like, it comes down to one team making it out of NA, one team making it out of EU or EMEA. So it's going to be kind of crazy, like, because it's all fine margins. Like, it's one thing to sit there and talk about, and we've done this in the past where we've gone, oh, well, these teams are dominating in recent tournaments. These teams look great. We always get to this kind of like LCQ moment, and it all goes tits up. Like, so it's like we have no idea who's going to come out on top on this one. I again really like Cabal from North America, but obviously that is a gauntlet you do at least remove 4 of the biggest teams. EMEA, God, throw a dart at the board and see what you hit. You know, it's so tight. Like, also Qual, BTD, and Team Kez are all really good teams. So could be any of them. Could be none of them. No idea. It's going to be great.
Who knows? Let us know in the comments. What was your favorite moment of the Paris Major Open? Who are you most excited to see play through these LCQs? And also, where should Ethan go? Let us know. What do you have? We had a great discussion, but we also want to hear from you, the community. What do you think should go on down? Make sure you're liking, you're commenting, subscribing every video, because we're pumping out content every single week just for you, baby. But that's all we got for you this week in Challengers.